Welcome back. Chaos over Common Core, Reginald Denny, and when the Guardian Angels first descended on Buffalo. Dave McKinley has more now in our weekly walk back in time when those stories and more were all news to you.
10 years ago this week, as ground was broken on the new UB Jacobs School of Medicine, State Education Commissioner John King embarked on a series of town hall meetings to extol the virtues of the Common Core curriculum. But at the first one, he got such an earful from angry parents, he walked off the stage and canceled the rest of those meetings. Today, King serves as the chancellor of the SUNY system. The Buffalo Jills still existed, and tickets went on sale for the first round of the NCAA basketball tournament to be held in Buffalo the following spring. But when fans showed up to buy them, they found out they couldn't, at least not in person.
You got to go online.
Yes, in a sign of changing times, this marked the first time the tickets could only be purchased online this week in 2013. 20 years ago this week, when Darryl Talley saw his name become the latest to be placed on the Buffalo Bills Wall of Fame out at the stadium, there were some significant comings and goings locally. It was announced that John Simpson would be coming in as the new president of UB, while it was learned that Henry Mansell, the 12th bishop of the Buffalo Catholic Diocese, would be going after 8 years, appointed by the Pope to become the Archbishop of Hartford. Speaking of going.
That is crazy. I don't understand how somebody can bring themselves to do that.
Kirk Jones became only the second person to go over Niagara Falls without a barrel and survive. He was the first person, though, to do it on purpose. Some friends said he did it for fame. Jones later said he was trying to kill himself.
I'm thankful that he is alive, and maybe he'll gain a lot of more respect for life out of this.
Jones would return to the falls 14 years later, this time taking another plunge inside an inflatable ball, a trip he would not survive, unlike the one he did this week in 2003. 30 years ago this week.
Not guilty of the crime of attempted murder.
4 black men were acquitted of the most serious charges against them in the racially motivated attack on truck driver Reginald Denny, who was dragged from his rig, beaten, and had his head smashed with a brick during the riots that erupted the year before when L.A. police officers were acquitted in the Rodney King beating. Denny hugged the mother of the defendant who fractured his skull, Damian Williams, who served a few years for a charge of mayhem and was released early only to be convicted a few years later for a murder, for which he's still serving time today. 40 years ago this week, the first members of the Buffalo chapter of the Guardian Angels completed their training and were hitting the streets. The founder of the Red Beret Anti-Crime Patrol said Buffalo really needed them.
People here in Buffalo have always been thrashed upon, degraded, knocked into the ground, made fun of.
This week's News to You pop quiz. Do you recall the name of the founder of the Guardian Angels, which eventually grew to have chapters in 130 cities in 13 countries worldwide? Remember, this was back when the county executive actually had a golf game to speak of and actually got along well with the mayor. And when making a long-distance call, you'd need the assistance of an operator at New York Telephone, perhaps one wearing a MASH t-shirt. And when the Braves were no more, but the Nets and 76ers played a preseason game here, delighting the crowd down at the Odd, and when no less than 7 Hall of Famers took the field for that year's World Series between Philadelphia and Baltimore, the Orioles won it and, believe it or not, have not been back to the World Series once in the 40 years since they took it in 5 games this week in 1983, when it was all news to you.
Thank you, Dave. So here's the answer to this week's News to You pop quiz. Curtis Sliwa was the founder of the Guardian Angels, who began patrolling the streets in Buffalo 40 years ago this week in 1983. Today, Sliwa still serves as the executive director of that civilian safety patrol. He has also been a radio talk show host and ran as the Republican candidate for mayor in New York City 2 years ago. So there you go.
Neat.